from Birmingham by the Immigration Minister, Phil Woolas. With me in the studio is the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Grayling. In Southampton for the Liberal Democrats, Chris Huhne. Phil Woolas, you heard the employers say that as soon as the illegality of these workers is drawn to their attention, they're sacked, and very soon they turn up again for work. That your border agency has done absolutely nothing beyond revealing them, never getting them out of the country.
Load of tosh, John, load of tosh. The fact that we've got the identity cards which expose this, the fact that we've got the sponsor system in place is why you're seeing stories like this as the agency gets a grip with it. And then you see the removals. Last year there were 64,000 removals from this country. So I don't accept the report at all. It's painting a one side of the picture.
Is it a load of tosh, Chris Grayling?
Well, let me give you an example. 2 years ago, we discovered that the government discovered there were more than 2,500 illegal workers working in the security industry. One of them was even guarding the Prime Minister's car. A few months ago, I asked ministers how many of those people had been deported. The answer was 35. I don't think it's tosh at all. I think this government has failed to deliver when it comes to deporting people who are here illegally. It's nonsensical. If we find people who are working illegally, they should be deported.
Chris Huhne, the Liberal Democrats in their manifesto launched this morning said that you would be looking to amnesty to sort this out.
No, we didn't say we'd be looking to amnesty. We said two things. First of all, that we needed tougher enforcement measures against business. What Phil Woolas didn't tell you is that half of the people who were deported were not actually deported, they were simply turned away at the border. So that's a wild exaggeration of the effort that the UK Border Agency is actually putting into this problem.
Just clarify
and we've
that
had only
114
prosecutions and convictions since 1997, which is absolutely ludicrous. It's a bad joke. We need much better enforcement so that businesses are not employing illegal immigrants. Now, if someone is here for a long period of time, say, and we say more than 10 years...
Well, I'll come back to that point in just a moment.
Children...
You've made a very important allegation, and that is that the figures that you say justify your claim that this report is all tosh are tosh themselves, because half of these people were turned away. They weren't deported at all.
I didn't say your report was all tosh. I said your allegation was tosh. And the opposition parties, Chris keeps coming up with this deliberate, I think, but ludicrous allegation on the security guards, which I think is just misrepresenting the facts. The fact of the matter is, John, that we, in our campaign to get on top of this...
You haven't addressed Chris Huhne's 64,000 claim, which is that half of them were not deported, as you said they were, but they were turned away at the border.
Well, the people, some of them are people who turn up, and because of the ID that we now have, which incidentally the Liberal Democrat manifesto has rejected biometric advances, so how you would enforce it without the ID cards and without the measures that we have is just tosh.
That is a complete red herring. Half of these people are turned away at the border, and these are people who don't, by definition, have UK identity cards. So that's a complete red herring. And you know you're not doing enough to enforce against employers the employment of illegal immigrants. They're exploiting illegal immigrants, and they ought to be properly prosecuted, and you're simply not doing enough.
OK, well, Chris Grayling, where are you on this 64,000? Do you have any clue as to what the real situation is?
Well, I think the evidence, all the evidence we see is that the Border Agency only manages to deport a very small number of the people it actually identifies. And what we actually have is a government giving out national insurance numbers to illegal immigrants, which makes the matter worse for employers.
Why would you do any better?
Well, I think what we need to do, first of all, is to have a renewed focus within the Border Agency on actually deporting people. We need a dedicated border police force to crack down on the bigger organisers of illegal working, and we need to prosecute employers who do take on illegal workers. At the moment, they get the financial equivalent of a parking ticket, £5,000 fine, no matter how much they're actually doing. We need tougher sanctions against employers of illegal immigrants, but above all, there's got to be a culture in the Home Office and in the Border Agency that when we identify people who are here illegally, we will deport them.
Well, that's exactly what happened to ISS in this case. Nothing very draconian happened to them. Indeed, nothing very draconian happened to Baroness Scotland.
No.
Phil Woolas.
Is that to me, John?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to join in this race to be the toughest, because the premise of Chris's point and both Chris's point is simply not true. They need to learn more about what actually happens. The sponsorship regime that we have is resulting in an exposing of illegal immigrant working, and we are deporting people, of course.
The point he made was that you're not prosecuting the employers. You're not prosecuting the employers.
Well, we prosecute employers all of the time, but our policy is to ensure that people who are working are legal. That's why we have the ID card. And Chris Huhne, I know that he's facing a Conservative challenge in his seat, but he is a Liberal, and he is against some of the measures that we need to put into place the regime that he's talking about.
All right, well, let's
Foreign
move
national
on.
ID cards are based on fingerprints.
Let me answer that point, John.
How do you, well, try it then.
Let me answer that point, because the key thing that Phil is trying to say here is that somehow issuing ID cards to foreign nationals is actually going to help, when half of the people he says that are being deported are actually turned away at the border, when they have no opportunity to have an ID card. They have their own national ID cards, and they continue to have their own national ID or passports with a proper visa if it has been issued in it, and if they don't have that proper visa in it, then they ought to be subject to deportation.
Right.
And the problem here is that the Labour government has not enforced the law. It's as simple as that.
Hang on, let's just briefly move on to this whole question of amnesty. Boris Johnson, Mayor of London, a Conservative, says 5 years in this country, you should really be looking at people who've been here for that sort of length of time. The easiest way to deal with them is indeed to have an amnesty.
Boris Johnson is a great Mayor of London. He's a good friend of mine. The job of deciding on immigration resides with the Home Office under a Conservative government.
I don't mind whose job it is. I'm asking you about an amnesty.
If there is a Conservative government, there will be no amnesty. I think it sends totally the wrong message to the world. It means the human traffickers, the human smugglers will aim at the UK. It means people will seek to come here. It is the wrong thing to do. The Liberal Democrats in their manifesto are completely wrong to recommend it.
OK, very briefly, Phil Willis, an amnesty?
No, not at all.
OK, so you're both the same on that. And Liberal Democrats?
Well,
we're not recommending as an amnesty, but what we are recommending is that if people have been here for 10 years and their kids have grown up here, going through local schools, in fact, the prospect of deporting them is so remote that there ought to be, and if they haven't been involved in any criminal offences and speak English and they're prepared to work their passage, they can work their way to citizenship.
Okay.
But that's a very different proposal to the proposal of an amnesty, which would not work. The sort of ideas that Boris Johnson is coming up with, frankly, are irresponsible.
Phil Willis, thank you very much. One clarification. We haven't had a chance to talk to you since you said you didn't think that gay couples staying in the home of somebody running a B&B should be allowed. You thought that people running the house or the B&B should be allowed to refuse entry to a gay couple. Were you wrong?
Well, I've already apologised if I caused confusion with my remarks.
Were you wrong?
I don't think. I voted for the change in the law. I do not think. Were you wrong? I don't think that people who are gay should be turned away from a B&B. From a private house that is run as a B&B? I don't think that should happen. I voted for the change in the law. You were wrong? Yeah, I think they would be wrong to do that.
And how did you vote on Section 28?
I wasn't an MP on Section 28.
Fine. And
on civil partnerships, I voted in favour of civil partnerships.
Gay adoption?
Gay adoption, I didn't. I've changed my view on that, and I support gay adoption. That was nearly 10 years ago. I now support gay adoption. I think it's the right thing. The interest of the child must come first, and I think many gay couples would make excellent carers, parents for children who are otherwise going to grow up in care in children's homes.
Chris Grayling, thank you very much indeed. Now, promising a £700 tax giveaway for most British taxpayers, the Liberal Democrat leader Nick Clegg has unveiled his party's manifesto. He claimed his plans would hardwire fairness into British society. The centrepiece of the manifesto is the £17 billion